You've done a lot in the last 3 or so years, and I look at the skyline behind you, and recently you've started to try and change this skyline. Are you not fearful that the programs that you've put into place, the plans that you've put for the city, are going to get derailed now that you've stepped back?
Well, it is my concern, Peter. To be honest with you, I would really be lying to anyone that this decision was light. Unfortunately, I had no choice of ever really saving the residents of the city of Johannesburg outside the structure of seven-way political parties, including the DA. If the DA has decided to really go backwards, and I had to really be their mayoral candidate, that issue as no longer negotiable. So I'm really obviously sensitive about this. But I think our people have to really have the confidence that we are lucky in the sense that we 18 months away from local government elections. And let's see what happens beyond that. I'm sure anyone who's going to take over this administration will have to really be very careful.
Johannesburg is the richest city in Africa and one of the iconic cities of the world. It's a young city established after the discovery of gold on the Witwatersrand in the late 1800s. It was always a city of immigrants. They came wave after wave from Europe, India, the internally displaced after the South African War, and many other places. It quickly grew from a mining town to the economic powerhouse of Africa. After democracy in 1994, Johannesburg was seen as a key driver of the economic reformation in South Africa. A new wave of immigrants arrived, this time from the continent, all in search of economic opportunity. The new ANC City Council faced serious challenges. Not only did they have to manage the new immigrants, they also had to embark on a long process to address the spatial planning of the apartheid era. Johannesburg was a city divided into rich white areas and poor black areas, all separated by distance. This had to change. Some believe that the ANC-led council did a good job, whilst others thought that they failed. Ultimately, citizens had the last say. In 2016, the ANC lost control of the Johannesburg Metro to the Democratic Alliance. The DA appointed Herman Mashaba, a legendary and very successful businessman, as the new mayor.
This is the right one. I can't afford to make a mistake.
And the votes cast is as follows. 125 for Mpo Franklin Parkstown and 144
Do you, Herman Mashaba, swear that you will be faithful to the city of Johannesburg, Metropolitan Municipality, Gauteng Province and the Republic of South Africa, and will obey, respect and uphold the Constitution and all other laws of the Republic, and that you undertake to hold your office as Executive Mayor of the city of Johannesburg Metropolitan Municipality with honor and dignity, to be a true and faithful councillor, not divulge directly or indirectly any secret or confidential matter entrusted to you, and to perform the functions of your office conscientiously and to the best of your ability. If so, please raise your right hand and say so help you God.
So help me God.
So the voters ultimately said enough is enough. So we're no longer prepared to give powers to one government. So the beauty of this, and the difficulty at the same time, but I think I'm excited with this, because every time I take a decision, I've got to consult. Because if I don't consult, I'll never get the go-ahead from the other parties.
From the start, it was clear that this term would have many challenges. Although there were houses built, bureaucracy made it impossible for new owners to move in. This was one of the first issues Mashaba had to address after becoming mayor.
So, we're sorry you had to wait so long. We're really very sorry that you had to wait so long. But at long last, that day is arrived. Most of the people who we are giving houses to are people who have been on the waiting list since 1996, 1997. Elderly people, some of them disabled. They want us to continue with the fraud and corruption and maladministration of the past. It is not going to happen. We will follow the list. And fortunate enough, we did consultation with all the councillors to make sure that we follow a transparent process. Yeah. So you can imagine if it was in the past, how many times have people jumped you on the list?
Some would be satisfied and call it progress, but for Mashaba, it's only the beginning of a long process to rebuild the city.
If one looks at it from a progress point of view, yes, I'm satisfied. But unfortunately, there's still a lot to be done. Unfortunately, just in terms of the housing backlog in the city of Johannesburg, it's over 300,000.
Mashaba is on a drive to sort out the housing crisis in the city. It cuts much deeper than just a housing backlog.
We don't have accommodation for our people. We've got hijacked buildings, derelict, abandoned buildings, total lawlessness. That's why I said I've got to fix this.
Often when bureaucracy gets in the way and service delivery fails, it's the poor that suffer the consequences. The mayor is in Alexandra today, a township to the north of Johannesburg, and he has some good news to deliver.
When did you register for
96.
96? Okay. At long last, you and Mama are going to get a proper house. You can live, you can
I can't believe that.
That's great. Can we go? Can you just close and then we can show you your house?
Oh, I can't believe that.
You're happy
I can't believe. Very, very happy. I don't know if I must cry or I must laugh.
You deserve it, huh?
This is my kiss. Thanks, Mayor. What is the Mayor? Thanks, Mayor. I know you today. It's my first time to see my Mayor.
Yes, we can celebrate this achievement, but we still got a long way to go.
Since becoming mayor, Mashaba has delivered hundreds of houses to people who previously had to live in informal settlements. This brought stability to families who needed it the most. It's not a role that he ever thought that he would fulfill. Herman Mashaba was born in the rural village of Garamutse in Hammanskraal. His father passed away when Mashaba was just 2 years old, and his mother worked as a domestic worker in Johannesburg. Apartheid was the political system of the day. Not only did he grow up in a poor family, but he also faced a system that presented very few opportunities for black people. But this would not stand in his way. He faced the challenges head-on to become one of the few successful black businessmen in Johannesburg. He became a hero of the community, and it was clear that he was destined for greater things. That opportunity came when the DA asked him to be their mayoral candidate for Johannesburg, the largest metro in South Africa. He now had an opportunity to serve the community that had made him a success.
So this is where the Mashabas grew up.
Yeah, this is.
And your family was how big? How many of your siblings?
I was with my mother. Obviously, was a domestic worker in Joburg. Used to come as and when it was convenient. Being brought up by my sister, who was 13 years my senior. In fact, my sisters keep telling me when I was young, before starting sub A in 1966. They used to, when I go to, because all of them at the time they were all school going, so they'll just leave the door open, not completely closed, so that when I wake up, I can just get out and go somewhere in one of the neighbors until they come back from school. And I lived in this area until 1977. Then 1977 moved to Leboneng, which is another township on the other side of Babeleche industrial area. All these houses you see around were not really there. It was the only house, and I see they've extended this with this balcony. This balcony was.
So you didn't have this balcony?
No,
here.
we didn't have this.
So education played a very important part in shaping your successful destiny.
Well, I can imagine if I did not really get a little bit of education, I would have achieved half of what I achieved, because, without really having the necessary education to equip you, chances of making it in life are very slim.
So this
but also at the same time getting the experience, because you can imagine after abandoning my education in 1980, second year of my studies, I had to work, and I realized I needed to get experience. And the only way I could get experience was to accept any job available to me, so that I could really be able to climb up the ladder. And I worked for a salary in my life for 23 months, 2 companies. Once for 7 months Spa, and then Matani Industries for 23 months. And during that 30 months, that's when I realized, Herman, you've got to do something about your life to attain your independence. That's how I decided, let me stabilize my life, got married. 2 months later, bought a car. 2 months later, resigned and started my business career.
Having grown up in a poor community and seeing the ills of society firsthand, this had a profound impact on a young Mashaba. Drug and alcohol abuse was part of life for those around him. He would carry this experience with him, and one day the opportunity would come for him to right one of the many wrongs that he saw growing up as a child. He's in Alexandra today to open a center that will help drug abusers turn around their lives.
Over the last few years, my experience of seeing what drugs are doing to our youth, drugs are doing to our communities, it hurts me. We operate in an environment where it's like we don't have a government, because I cannot imagine how any self-respecting government could let things like this happen.
I've started smoking drugs in an early age of my life. So I've managed to go to school. I've done my matric, but because of drugs, I was given an opportunity to go further more education, but I didn't because of the drugs.
I like social development, to make consultation with Edgar. I listened to him, that he went as far as matric, he couldn't proceed any further than that. Please do me a favor. I'd like to see Edgar going to university. So that this program that we are embarking upon can ensure that Edgar can be a role model, not just for his family, can be a role model for people of Alexander and overall the city of Johannesburg. My family is committing to make that possible, taking care of you 100%, but you've got to pass.
To date, there are now 6 centers of this kind open in the greater Johannesburg area.
Let's just say it's not just really the youth who are the victims, the families. Because unfortunately, when you have a drug addict in your home, you can imagine the impact on the entire society.
It was a tumultuous day in Chambers. This is the 3rd sitting of council in the city of Johannesburg.
In the council chambers, Mashaba was still in his honeymoon phase. The centre was holding and the coalition partners were supporting his efforts.
Today marks my 22nd day in office as the leader of this administration. Thank you for placing your trust in me to lead this city. It is a position I do not take for granted, and the DA and the new DA-led administration is already working tirelessly to bring about change desired by the people of our city. It is a mandate we dare not to fail to deliver on. Because if Johannesburg works, South Africa works. The people of Johannesburg have spoken. They want to see real change and bold steps taken to move Johannesburg forward again. The people have chosen a diverse group of parties to lead them. But on one thing, their voice was very clear. Change must come to our city, the city of Johannesburg. This election should be a lesson to all of us. Never take for granted the voters who we are meant to serve. Now is the time for all of us to roll up our sleeves and get working again together.
But the honeymoon was soon over. A rift opened up between the DA and the ANC opposition. They called for a vote of no confidence, and Mashaba had to face his first real political fight.
Today we're gathered here at this wonderful park on Empire Road. We are marching in solidarity with Herman Mashaba, an outstanding mayor that the DA has put into leading the DA municipality in the city of Johannesburg. There's a motion being tabled by the ANC of motion of no confidence, and it's a frivolous motion because we know that Herman Mashaba has had 1 year to govern the city of Johannesburg. In his 1 year, the success of his governance is really just amazing. To date, as I speak to you, we've now tallied up the corruption. It is amounting to 17 billion, which is money that has been freed up, which can then be used for service delivery for the city of Johannesburg.
Councillors 121 for the motion and 140 against.
The motion was defeated, and Herman Mashaba survived to fight another day.
From day one on council, ANC has always been against me. They voted against me on day one. And they made a promise, a commitment to everyone that my government will not survive until December 2016. They said I'll never survive until adjustment budget. I will never be able to pass my first budget. And they've always now been coming out with all these frivolous motions, really wasting our time. You can imagine, I'm here to serve society and serve the residents of Johannesburg. Now you can imagine the amount of time that I had to, all of us have to waste as councillors. Residents don't pay us to waste time on issues like this. They expect us to serve them.
Having defeated the motion of no confidence in his government, Mashaba could now start paying more attention at urgent issues that he had to address. For years, the security services of the city were outsourced, giving very little in the form of job security and benefits to the workers. This was about to change.
May 2017, during the State of the City address, I made an announcement that 1st of December 2018, all the security officers working for this tenderpreneurs are going to be insourced.
Colleagues, today is a historic day for the city of Johannesburg, if not South Africa. I made an announcement in May of 2017 that the security services in the city of Johannesburg will be insourced by the 1st of January of 2018. Unfortunately, there were forces out there that made it impossible for me to delay. But I was determined, put pressure on everyone to make sure that this day happens. And I'm glad, as much as it happened 6 months later, but it is here. It is a reality. This was not an easy exercise. It's over 4,000 people. I can assure you, within the next 2 months, all of you 4,000 will be employed by the city of Johannesburg. I can guarantee you, by end of this month, your take-home pay is going to be 50% more than what you were getting. I can assure you, you're going to have benefits, pension, medical aid if you want. So you're not just going to be a number. You're not going to be a forgotten people. I'm sure you've heard me talking about the forgotten people. You were forgotten for 20 years. 1st of July 2018, you are no longer the forgotten people.
I'm staying with my brother's child and my child. So I'm looking after that child, and I survive with 4.5. Now I'll be survive more with 6.8. So I'm so glad if I go into work under city.
I would also like to obviously thank the coalition partners working with me in council, in particular the EFF working with me to say, Mayor, let's give dignity to our people.
But his biggest challenge was waiting around the corner, captured buildings. After an audit of buildings in the inner city was done, it showed that numerous buildings were abandoned by their owners and captured by crime syndicates. The syndicates were renting out space without providing services or paying rates and taxes to the city. This had to change.
Well, I think you remember on the 1st of December 2016, during my 100 days, that I've identified the inner city to be a great opportunity to address accommodation, affordable accommodation for our poor people. And we started on this exercise, doing massive raids, doing evaluation of these properties to identify who the owners are and the people behind them. And the team has really done a fantastic job. And I had to put together a proposal to council to give me the permission to offer these buildings to the private sector so that we can convert those buildings into affordable accommodation for our people. Because we want our people to work, live and play in this city, take it back from the criminal elements. So I'm excited with this project. Last Thursday, council has given me the full permission, starting with 12 buildings that I've proposed. And the council has now given me the permission to go ahead, and I'm sure you must have seen in today's all the papers. We're now looking for proposals.
To date, 84 properties have been handed over to developers. It's expected that 6,000 housing units will be built, creating 11,000 construction sector jobs and 21 billion rand in new investment. A further 70 buildings were expected for award in September 2019. The council approved the acquisition of the 37 abandoned factories that will also be redeveloped. The building of houses in the townships is continuing. Tackling the inner city at the same time is a completely new way to address the housing backlog in Johannesburg. It will bring families back to the inner city whilst improving the living standards of people in informal settlements.
This inner city project is not just really about the housing provision, it's about kickstarting economic recovery, because without the money flowing into the city of Johannesburg, we are doomed to fail. We've identified over 500 buildings that are abandoned, hijacked, derelict, over 500 of those buildings. So you can imagine if as the city of Johannesburg within the next 3 years we can release a minimum of 100 buildings, what this would really turn out to. You're looking at between 16 billion to 20 billion a year that you can attract in a city. We're looking at creating massive job opportunities. We're looking at training our people to really be electricians, to be plumbers, to be bricklayers.
To manage one of the biggest cities on the African continent whilst trying to address the imbalances created by the apartheid system might just be one of the most difficult jobs around. Add to that the careful balancing acts that you have to perform daily to keep your opposition party at bay and your coalition partners on board, and you realize that it takes a very special person to make it all work. Herman Mashaba is not that person alone, but rather the team that he has gathered around him. Like a good manager, he'll tell you that it takes teamwork to make the city work.